let me recommend that you do the readings, or at least attempt the readings, 3 short chapters, before you try to make sense of the movie, or maybe watch the movie, then do the readings, and then come back to the movies again. As indicated, we're going to focus on 3 theories or 3 approaches to ethics: virtue theories, duty theories, and consequentialist theories. And for our purposes, we're going to look at these as Aristotle's golden mean, which, as we talked about earlier, is kind of a balancing point between 2 extremes. We're going to look at Kant's rule following, this idea that about the things as a journalist you ought to be doing, your sense of duty, and then Mill's greatest good, that your decisions are based on minimizing harm, maximizing good, and for the greatest number of people. Virtue theories focus on character rather than moral behavior, and it really is about the kind of person we want to be. We all want to be virtuous, don't we? And we're going to associate that with Aristotle and the doctrine of the mean. As a little bit of background, Aristotle is going to be our oldest philosopher that we're talking about. And his idea is that virtue stands between 2 vices. And when I use the term vices here, I don't necessarily mean, two bad things. I mean really sort of 2 extremes. In an earlier video, we looked at the various ways that newspapers in Virginia depicted the Roanoke murder on its front pages. And we know that there was a number of photographs you could use. One included the cold-blooded murder, others included the community. But maybe that sort of golden mean, that balancing point, or that sweet spot between the 2 extremes, was the one front page that depicted the victims in happier times. And it really kind of honored their memory. And here's just an obligatory graphic to go along with this. Moral virtue is a middle state determined by practical wisdom. That makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, duty theories. They've also been referred to as non-consequentialist theories, sometimes referred to as absolutists, and that duty theories provide us with concrete rules that provide few exceptions. So some scholars have argued that you really don't find many duty reporters in a newsroom, because as journalists, we always have to allow for making decisions kind of on a case-by-case basis, rather than following one hard, fast set of rules. Duty theorists have also referred to Kant's categorical imperative, and that's the idea that you wouldn't make a rule that you wouldn't follow yourself. Okay, so what's right for one is right for all. And sometimes we've even seen the idea of the golden rule associated with Kant, that this whole idea that do unto others as you would do unto yourself. Now, let me give you one example of what I mean by a duty theory, or this whole idea of absolutism. Presumably, you don't cheat in college, but you might not cheat for a number of reasons. One is you're afraid of getting caught. Okay, now that's one thing. But if you don't cheat because it's just wrong, it sort of is a breach of the norm of being a college student, that would be more of a subscribing to a duty-based theory. You do your own work because it's the right thing to do. You don't cheat because cheating is the wrong thing to do. So just to summarize, duty theory acts on the maxim or the rule you will become universal law. So what is right for one is right for all. So you wouldn't make a decision you wouldn't adhere to yourself. And of course, here's the obligatory graphic here. Act only on that maxim whereby you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. And as I said earlier, you wouldn't plagiarize not because you'd be afraid of getting caught, but because you consider it morally wrong. And I've got kind of a fun example here from a movie called The Invention of Lying.
Morning, Shelley. Hi, Mark. I realize more and more every day how overqualified I am for this position and how incompetent you are at yours. Any messages? Anthony is coming up within the hour to see if he can get up the courage to fire you. If he can't, he said that he'll definitely do it tomorrow. Anything else? Any messages not to do with being fired? Well, he told everyone you're getting fired this week and they shouldn't expect their calls returned, so no one left any messages. Okay. Next time? I don't think there'll be a next time. Take the message, just in case I don't get fired. You're almost definitely getting fired.
So the idea of before is the character invented lying, and so before lying, people just automatically told the truth, even if it was hurtful, because it was the right thing to do. Okay, I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to do this movie in 2 parts, just because it's easier to record that way and probably easier for you to comprehend.